for this one, I'm going to be talking about another DPR build. So we're going to try to do consistently high damage round. We got about, the highest was around 170-ish for our Beastmaster. And I would say that the mark we want to reach above for these DPR builds at level 20 is 150. Now, this is not using magic items, mostly using standard array and going to 20. What can we do without any help of allies? So, in this one, we will be going into the Scout Rogue. Now, the reason why I chose Scout is there are a few options when it comes to Rogue. And we're going to talk about Scout Rogue first, but we're also going to be talking about Phantom Rogue and comparing a few other Rogue builds to see what they can do, because basically with all these rogues, we're still achieving the same thing. That being, we're seeing how many times you can get in sneak attack and kind of max out that damage. Scout Rogue is great because just, while basically almost every other ability the Scout gets is, I mean, expertise is nice. Getting movement speed increase is okay, and having a better first turn is decent. Nothing crazy though. Then we get to 17th level, which is Sudden Strike. Starting at 17th level, the Scout Rogue can strike with deadly speed. If we take the attack action on our turn, we can make an additional attack as a bonus action, and this can benefit from sneak attack even if you've already used it that turn. But you can't use sneak attack against the same target more than once a turn. So this, again, it requires 2 targets, but that's not unreasonable when in a fight. You could risk opportunity, or if you're ranged, it's even easier to pull off. So this means that we're dealing double the amount of sneak attack per turn, and at 17th level, we're dealing 9d6 as our sneak attack. But what's interesting about sneak attack is it's once per turn, but some restrictions are once per turn on your turn. This is not, which means we can use sneak attack again. We can benefit from sneak attack again as a reaction. Well, what does this mean? Well, it means if we make a build that can consistently land its reaction attacks, then we're going to be dealing another 9d6 plus our weapon attack each turn. Now, normally I exclude reactions because I can't rely on them, but if we make a build that can consistently make reaction attacks, why not? So, as for pretty much all of our DPR builds, we're going to go into ASMR. And remember, Tosh's Cauldron of Everything, which means we can put those stats wherever we want. We don't really need anything besides Dex. It's for our damage purposes. Even for what we'll need to multiclass, we won't even need to switch out of Dex. We'll just need, because fighter is Dex or Strength, and that's pretty much it. So, essentially, we're just going to make our highest score 17 and then put the rest in whatever you want. It doesn't matter. So, then that brings us to our build, right? We're going 17 Scout, which means, well, here's a tricky situation here, because we can either choose one of 2 things. Now, we can get 10 damage out of each of our attacks if we use Sharpshooter, because range would still go sneak attack. We can't do that with Great Weapon, though, which means that we could technically do Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade instead, but we wouldn't benefit we would be losing out on sharpshooter. So it's debatable whether that's better or not, because we can only make it twice. We can cast. Oh, but the thing is, we can't even do that because remember, Scout Rogue says that if we take the attack action on a turn, which we're not doing if we are casting a spell. So unfortunately, we can't grab. I mean, we can't. It doesn't really benefit us to do that. Either way, though, as our 4th level ASI, we're going to grab the Magic Initiate feat. Actually, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can also get Hex from Fate Touched because it includes enchantment spell, and that also gives you Misty Step, which is just a nice utility. But the point is, you want to have Hex as that choice because basically that's the only way that you're going to get a concentration spell that increases your damage, because we're not taking any caster levels. Now, rogues get cunning action, and then sneak attack. We obviously know what that is. Unfortunately, we are not really going to be using our cunning actions because, I mean, early on we can, but later on we're just going to use our bonus action to deal more sneak attack damage. 5th level, Uncanny Dodge, just a good ability to have. 6th level, more expertise. Just as long as you have stealth as one and perception as another, just make the others whatever you want. It doesn't really matter for this. 7th level, our other scout. I mean, at 7th level, we get evasion, another great ability. I can list out rogue abilities, but the point is, nothing that rogue really gives us is going to increase our damage other than the scaling up of sneak attack damage. So then what? Well, after we go 17 into rogue, we're going to go 3 into Battlemaster. This maybe seem like an odd decision, but just trust me on this. So how many ASIs does this leave us with, right? 1 at 4th level, 1 at 8th, 1 at 12th, and 1 at 16th. So we use the first one to boost our dex to 19. Second, to grab Sharpshooter. The third, I would say, probably Gunner. I mean, it's like, there's other +1 feats, but that give dex to just cap our dex, but I honestly, Gunner's just one of the best ones. I would just take that, and then finally we have to grab either Magic Initiate or Fey Touch. So that's going to be our ASI spread. Pretty good. We got 20 decks and we have everything we need. But the thing is, you can take another avenue, which I kind of suggest, which is to, instead of taking that half feat, we just instead go into the Battlemaster one, which is Martial Depth, I believe, and that one is going to give us one more superiority die, and it's going to give us 2 more maneuvers. So, and then also, we, as a fighting style, one of them is literally just another Battlemaster maneuver. So at this point, we have 6 Battlemaster maneuvers total. One of them is only a D6, but others, which means that at this point, okay, well, what can we choose? Well, we want to have more reactions, right? So that's what we're going to take. So first off, we have Rib Toss, which means if an enemy tries to hit us, we can expend a superiority die to make an attack at them as a reaction. Brace, which means that if an enemy moves in our reach, we can make an attack at them. This is why Gunner might be, but this is only, again, melee option. So Brace is great, and Rip Toss, well, that's also melee only. There's bait and switch, which allows us to switch into a better advantageous position because it costs no reaction in order to, if they're trying to run away, get an opportunity attack on them. But again, with range is really hard. So do we do wrong by choosing range? Perhaps. But if we choose range, how do we make up for that lost damage? We're taking the attack action, which means we can't use Green Flame Blade to get that extra damage. We have to use a finesse weapon, so we can't benefit from Great Weapon Master. Are we just going to lose out on that damage? Unfortunately, it seems so, but this gives us two free, this gives us at least one feat or ability score that we haven't taken yet. The question is what to do for that? Well, let's keep talking and maybe we can find something. ASI means that we can instead take the Magic Initiate and get Green Blade or Booming Blade or even both. And then we can get Warcaster, but here's the thing. We can only, bait and switch and things like that can sometimes set up a opportunity attack, but most times it's just making a melee attack, which means we can't cast a spell, which means we're not going to get a fall all the times. So it's all we have, unfortunately. But it's still going to be a decent amount of damage. So let's see how much damage we can deal. I'm going to say that you're dealing at least a d8 extra damage to the whole thing total, because you're probably spending at least one superiority die a turn, which is going to be added to that damage. Also, you're an ASMR, so that's another 20 damage, and then you have Hex up. So we can get rid of our extra fighting maneuver feat and instead take the UA feat, which is Gift of Chromatic Dragon, which basically we can touch a weapon and it deals an extra d4 Chromatic Dragon damage. If we instead, or from our feat, we get the Dueling Frank style, we can add +2 damage for each one. So all in all, that's going to be 170 damage flat, which is really good. I mean, this is without pulling off any tricks. We just need a few feats, 3 levels in fighter, 17 in rogue. The only thing about this is it jumps up at 17 or 20 depending on how you're taking your rogue levels, but it's, I mean, because it doesn't require any setup except putting up your ASMR and casting on the chromatic weapon. That's all you need, and then casting Hex is a bonus, and then each turn you're just going to deal a ton of damage, which, again, now the thing is, if you're getting the dueling feat, you're going to have to sacrifice to only 4, which means that you wouldn't necessarily benefit from the Booming Blade, because if you get Warcaster, that's going to boost up to, instead, it's going to be 184, which is, again, pretty significant, but I mean, without the dueling, you're -6, so that's probably closer to, like, 178-ish, so, but regardless, that's higher than the Beastmaster's Realm, which is to be expected. It's Beastmaster, but still, it's really consistent and is basically just a pure scout. Is Scout Rogue the best option to take? Well, okay, let's look at if you do exactly the same thing as Phantom Rogue, which is as a Scout Rogue, which is you take 17 levels into Phantom and 3 into Battlemaster. So this is going to guarantee us a normal attack and reaction. So, well, with Phantom, we are getting basically a number of these special sneak attacks that deal half your sneak attack damage rounded up. So for sake of simplicity, I'm just going to do, for example, we have 9 d6 at this point. I'm going to do 5 d6 for the Phantom's second target. And you get more of these special uses of your ability by your 9th level ability, which basically gives you soul tokens, which you have a number equal to your proficiency bonus, and you can destroy them to basically get another use of your Whales of the Grave, which you can do a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So basically you're going to have 12. You're never going to run out, even if you're spending 2 each turn. But can we even do that? Well, it just says after, it says after you deal sneak attack on your turn. So we're only going to do this once a turn, so it's just going to be, which means we can last 12 rounds, so we're good. Now, though, we're not done, though, because at our capstone, we can now deal Whales of a Grave damage, which is that extra half, to both the first and the second target. What does this mean? Well, it means that we're not just doing 5d6, we're doing 10d6, which means it's 19d6 plus 96 from a reaction. So that's going to be 28d6 total, which again is only 1d6 more than our Scout, but that's still more damage in the end. If we basically do everything exactly the same, we're going to end up with 187, which again, that's only 3 more because it's 1 more dice. But still, that's still slightly better. So Phantom is probably the way to go because it's also cooler. You get your damage isn't going to suddenly jump when you reach Scout Rogue. It's going to be consistently better and then jump to be even better afterwards. And you get also other cool stuff, like you can use the soul trinkets to have advantage on death saves and constitution saving throws. We can basically ask the spirit a question too. There's we can turn into a ghost. There's so many other cool things we can do with this that the Scout Rogue just doesn't get. But we're not done, because remember, that's just from 1 attack, which means that we still have our bonus to make another. Now, here's where things get a little crazy if we wanted to. We could theoretically use a hand crossbow and like a short sword. Using crossbow expert, we attack twice, and then with sharpshooter, we add another 10, and then as our bonus, because we pretty much have to immediately just attack with our sword. This, it's a bit tricky, but you can draw a weapon as part of an action. So this way, you can kind of if you just have like a bunch of short swords on hand, you can just keep taking them out and drawing them as part of the attack, and then dropping them, because you that way you can basically count, or dropping the other weapon, so you can only have 1 weapon at a time, so you can benefit from dueling. It's a little tricky. With that considered, we're dealing 201 damage. Once again, it wouldn't be completely that high unless you're base ability scores are higher, since you'd have to sacrifice certain feats in order to get all these options. And dueling will only get you, I think, that +2 once, so you really just want to take that fighting style as your extra maneuver, and then free that up for sharpshooter. And then you'd have crossbow expert, and that would only leave one chance for a ability score increase, and you lose gunner. But the things, we can't lose gunner because we're going to be meleeing as well. So in order to do this, you're going to have to basically just kind of max out at, I think 16 will be your max dex, unless you have other ways of getting there, which isn't ideal. But which is why probably those extra damage aren't really worth it. It's not gonna be a huge amount. You have to make sacrifices, like dueling and Reaver is just cheaper. But regardless, Phantom Rogue and using your action for sneak attack is a really reliable build. You're topping 200. Hope you enjoyed. This is Dodeca Dungeon. See you next time.